I'm Jack, Ajax Kelly. That's Ajax is my art name. I'm a designer, illustrator, muralist. I've been living in California for the last 4 years, and I just moved back to Columbus, Ohio. I went to Columbus College of Art and Design out here. I grew up out in Ohio, so it's been kind of nice coming back now that I've kind of found my way. Um, and yeah, I do a lot of apparel design primarily. It's what I've done for the last few years for my like day job before COVID hit, and I ended up getting furloughed when a lot of other people did. And it kind of worked out nicely just because I'd been wanting to kind of quit my day job at the end of 2020 regardless, and it happened in July instead, kind of against my choice, but it worked out for the best, and I've been working for myself for about 2 years now. So it's pretty crazy. So as far as art goes, I've always kind of been drawing and creating in some capacity. I was in music for a while in high school. That's a whole other lifetime ago. But as far as like what I shared with you guys and stuff, like this is kind of a more recent thing where I've kind of taken what I've learned, um, doing like graphic t-shirts, as long as, kind of mixing that with like my love of memes and like the weird kind of absurdist humor, and also this, you know, weird kind of self-reflective I don't know, the ones that I shared are a little, some of them are a little more darker, as far as like the humor goes, just kind of dealing with like anxiety and stuff. But I think a lot of that comes with like there's this weird relatability that people have with like memes and stuff like that, where it's like it just kind of like comes in with like those feelings that you can't necessarily like express or like whatever else. And so just this juxtaposition of like drawing and like design to kind of elevate above like, the normal, because a lot of memes and the digital media that we consume is, just done on the computer. It's like really janky and like rudimentary kind of, and so it's like this elevated design sense meeting like design and art and humor and like digestibility and stuff like that. And a lot of that kind of started happening more recently in like November or so. After I moved, I was feeling really just upside down. Just moved back. I was living at my parents' house, not quite sure where was up, and I was doing a lot of designs for other companies, and seeing all of this stuff. I was like, oh, we want some like this or that, and I was like, like I can do this. Like I can, I need to be doing my own thing. And so I'm actually in the process of making my own t-shirts and stuff, which aren't available yet, but hopefully soon. But yeah, so that's kind of just for the most recent stuff, I guess. I think it's a little bit of both. I think in the direct sense, it's like that's more of a recent thing, because it's like I'm trying to, grow my platform as an artist, as a designer, as a person, and so trying to make stuff more relatable. And so in like putting in that more direct influence of like being more comfortable sharing my own like personal like life and struggles and experience and like whatever else, versus like just drawing things for fun. But I think in an indirect way it all kind of ties in, because it's like, especially if you scroll back a long way, because it's like I've been on Instagram for a while, and I did delete a bunch of old stuff at one point because it just wasn't good anymore. But you can really see all of the different like dips and turns and transitions of like the different styles and experimenting with different things. And like, because I'm sure like everybody else that's probably watching this, it's like, you get bored with stuff super quick, or it's just like you do this for a little bit and then it's just like you're over it and you switch over here and then you go over here. And so I think that's also one of the benefits that I've kind of like used to my advantage through college and like through my career and stuff, is just like taking that need and that want and that like curiosity of experimenting with different things to my advantage. And like that in itself, I think, has helped define and like grow and set myself apart from a lot of people. Because I had a lot of peers in college that, they came in and they're like, well, I'm here to be a comic artist and I'm only going to do comic stuff and this doesn't apply to me and this doesn't, like, I don't need to take this class and it's like I don't need to take this one seriously. And it's just like I was always just kind of like, I want to learn all the things. Give me a little bit of everything and I'm going to just kind of make it work. And I've kind of just lived my life by that. And as I've gotten a little older and a little more established, it's hard because there you have to kind of go out of your way more to do the experimenting and like branch off more. But at the same time, it's like I've done enough of it that now it's opening up other paths in my career. And so it's like I'm not just doing t-shirts anymore. And so it's like now it's like I'm doing t-shirts and I'm doing murals and I'm doing branding and I've been doing album art and I've been, I'm able to do all of these things over the course of the last like 10 years. And now I'm also kind of like able to finally tie them all back in together into like bigger, like whole packages, which is kind of nice. The like the benchmark for me for just like when I know I'm having fun and like I know it's a good idea or design is like when I'm sketching it out or like I'm drawing or like I come up with like a phrase or something and it's like it just sticks in my brain and like it just makes me laugh every time I think about it. And like or I'm drawing and I'll just like start cracking myself up because I think it's the funniest thing. And 9 times out of 10 nobody else gets it, nobody else thinks it's funny, like no, like it's just like it's like three obscure like whatever's kind of like pinned together that and it just like tickles that part of my brain the right way. And like that's all. Like I don't think I shared any examples like with you for what I shared of my art, but I think that's always a good part. Like I like especially for most of my designs, like I draw the main image of it on paper first. I usually use like a marker and what I've gotten into a habit of doing is like if I find a reference image or something like that, like I just try to draw it in one go, like with a marker, like no pencil or anything. It's like I've found that I've kind of gotten to a point where I trust myself and like my mark making and like my coordination enough to be able to just sit down and draw it, and then whatever it ends up looking like that's cool. And it's like I might clean up a little bit of the lines like if I need to on the computer after I like scan it or take a photo of it. But I think it adds this nice looseness and like hand done feel. And then because it's like you can do all the typography and stuff on the computer, and I've got some different Photoshop actions to like chew and distress the lines and like do stuff like that. And so it's nice kind of creating this analog digital mix that it just gives it this nice feel that you don't get really from doing just purely digital work. A lot of time is just like following through. I've always have just ideas like my brain just never shuts off, and it's always just like, well, I should be doing this and I need to be doing that, and it's just like, oh, this would be good and this this needs to get done and whatever else. And so it ends up becoming this cycle where it's just like if one of them doesn't pick up any type of like hierarchy out of that like laundry list, then nothing gets done and it just like doesn't happen. And so it can be tough sometimes just like getting the execution done. And like I was telling myself for months and months and months that I needed to do my website, and then like the week before we moved out of California I was like, I have to do this right now. And I didn't waste, I got my website done, but it's like I spent all this time when I should have been packing and doing all these other things, and like finally did my website. And so it's one of those things where it's just like everything all at once or nothing at all. And then you just get like, when you don't do anything, then you get into that spiral of like, oh my God, like I'm not doing anything. I need to be productive. I need to be working on this. Why am I not doing this? And it's like, that causes other issues, so that's probably the worst of it. I kind of talked about this before, but I don't know if it's necessarily defined my work, but it's definitely impacted it. I worked for a couple of the biggest apparel companies, graphic licensed apparel companies, but I haven't stayed at a job for longer than 2 years. Like partially that was due to COVID, but also just after a certain point, I'm just like, okay, like I can't take doing the same thing every day. Like I can't handle, the lack of variety and, um, just it's too regimented, of like, okay, you have to be here at this time, you have to do this, you have to do that, whatever. And, nobody, oh, well, can't speak for everybody. Some people really like the structure of it and whatever else, but it was one of those things where it's just like, there were days where I really loved it and it was really great, but it's like I wanted to go do murals this week. It's like I need 2 weeks to go do a big mural, but I can't take it off because I also have to be able to go home and like visit my family and like or whatever else, and so I wasn't getting the like variety and things like that I was needing. That being said, it's like I was incredibly lucky with the jobs that I had. Like they were all great. And it's like I felt really guilty because I was like, I should be stoked to have this job. Like I'm getting paid really well to like draw just dumb t-shirts and like cool, just cool, it was cool. It's like, but and so it sucked like feeling guilty and then, kind of spiraled from there. And but as far as like defining me, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Just because I haven't really like addressed or like talked about it or like tried to incorporate it until recently when I've started like learning more about it because it's like I never really recognized or realized that I had ADHD until my wife and I had started dating and we had kind of like gone through some stuff. And then she was like, my best friend is like an ADHD like Gemini girl, and y'all are like the same person. Hence where that post came from. Um, of just like, and then so kind of like learning and developing from there. Um, I don't know if I'm just like getting off topic. I feel like I kind of answered it, but I don't want to like just start rambling. So, as far as where I get a lot of my inspiration, like Pinterest is huge. Like I love Pinterest so much, and I've spent. I'm really honestly like really thankful. I had a pattern design teacher in college that made us start using Pinterest and kind of like showed us how to use it. And I've been using it for long enough that I've kind of like redeveloped my own algorithm, and I've really broken free of all the like white boho wedding photos, and so because it's like because I'll talk to clients and stuff and I'll be like, hey, like make me a Pinterest board, and they'll be like, what? Like what do you mean? Like I don't use. I'm like, no, you need to. And then it's like they'll start, and it's like it's really like if you don't have any kind of like groundwork from using it, it's like it's really hard to find what you want. But once you kind of like chiseled out like your niche of like what you're looking for, it's like I've just got so much gold like all the time, and it's like it generates itself. And so I've been on this big kick where I've got all kinds of like design stuff that I find and like old like posters and matchbooks, just anything and everything. And then but like my favorite recently is I found all these pictures of like gadget prototypes and stuff that like people in like the 60s and like 70s and 80s were making for like the groundwork for what we have today. But it was just like, oh, like what we're gonna have in the future. And it's just like just crazy contraptions and stuff. And so, and like these old like VR headsets that are like enormous, and they've got all this stuff. And I really like taking that imagery and like redrawing that and then adding, the commentary over top, because it's like, there's so much going on with like the like virtual reality and like the metaverse and like all this other stuff. And it's like, and it all kind of like, we've been leading up to it for so long. And like now we're at this weird point where it's like everything's converging and we're like we spend all of our life on the internet, but at what point is that good or bad, or we can go on about that, for that's a whole other conversation for another day. um, but as far as like some artists that I do admire, especially with like the more recent stuff that I've been doing, Boss Dog, Day Off, Teenage Stepdad, and Crocodile Jackson, like those are all some of my favorites. Boss Dog's like huge in the apparel game right now, and he does a lot of like really cool, like motivational, like inclusivity, like equality kind of like t-shirts, and it's all like skeletons and frogs, and like it's very positive with just like cool weird imagery and stuff. And like this guy Day Off, like again, like him and Teenage Stepdad both like very much, Day Off does a lot of like kind of like pop culture, like drawing meme kind of stuff, and then Teenage Stepdad is just like really good, just like crazy like social commentary with like, but it's all photoshopped, like old ads and like all kinds of, like it's crazy. And it's like he was the one that really kind of like flipped the idea of like designing your own memes and like social commentary and like stuff like that. And so it was, I was kind of wanting to do like the more illustrative version, because his is all just like photo manipulation and like ads and like typography and like Photoshop edits. And so it's like, okay, like I can do something like this, but I want it to all be hand drawn, and Crocodile Jackson, he's just like, he's cool because he's done a lot of like cool fine art stuff, and a lot of his is like positivity and like a lot of just like funky, just like goofy drawings and like cutouts, and he does tattoos and stuff. And he's also been doing a lot more of just like kind of mental health awareness stuff, which has been cool. And so just like incorporating like his art with like speaking on like both like the positive and negative sides of like mental health and just like motivation and stuff like that. So those are all great. I can email a link if you guys want to like check their stuff out. Yes, absolutely. Motivation to me is just showing up every day. It's knowing and recognizing, whether it's a goal or whatever it is that you need. But it's just like, something that my dad always said, like he's an artist, and he was just like, look, like the only way you're going to make it is if you show up every day. Like at least as an artist, it's just like, and this really kind of like applies for anything, I think, because it's hard to find inspiration every day. It's hard. Like you can try, and it's like, and it's great like when it's really flowing and like everything, but and especially like when you're at those low points, and you're not finding inspiration, like it's really hard, and it's like it's hard to find the motivation. But it's just like, if you can get yourself to do 10%, like that's better than doing nothing. Like if you can show up long enough to just like get something down on paper, or just like make even the slightest bit of progress, like if you show up like that 10% every day when like you really don't want to, like that's gonna make so much more of a bigger long-term impact than just showing up when the inspiration's there. And that being said, it's just like when that inspiration does hit, like nothing's gonna stop that. And like it's the best, it's just like I love, and it's just like, again, like being in a relationship and stuff too, like it's hard because it's like, there are those times where it's just like once that inspiration hits, it's like, sorry baby, like there's nothing else, like this is all there is, and you're just gonna have to wait until I like ride this train and be done with it, because it's just like this has to happen. And I think I'm getting better about not falling to the extremes, because it's like that was especially a few years ago, when it was probably about 2 years ago, when I was just like really just like all over the place and had just been going through some stuff. And I was just like, man, like I should probably like get checked out for something, because it's just like there's like, it's either like super high and super on, or like super off, and like there is no middle ground, like period. And finding um, the motivation to kind of like create and stick to some level of like routine is huge, and something that I've struggled with, and I'm like trying to be better about, because it's just like, again, it's like if you have some kind of routine set in place, and it's like even if you are just doing like 10% of whatever that thing is, it's like that's still going to keep you from like hitting all the way here, you know what I mean? At least that's kind of what I've found. So yeah. Honestly, and like this was the hardest thing for me for the longest time, and I'd kind of wrote down a bunch of different things that weren't necessarily super helpful, but the one thing that I've really learned is like it's okay to like take a break. Like it's okay to just like, and again, this is probably just like, but didn't you just say to like, yeah, like there's those times though where it's just like you do have to just stop, like and like give yourself the grace to just take a break. Like, and I think that's one thing that we all struggle with, just because it's just like, you know as I mentioned before, it's just like I'm always on, like my brain is always running. There's always. And especially like, when I was in college, and it's like, when you're just doing projects, it's like you're constantly going, like there's no stop. And then it's just like if you take a break you feel guilty, and then it's like then you graduate and it's like, oh, I have to get a job, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. And it's just like, I think it's especially hard when you're, especially like as an artist, but I think as anyone, like when you're young and like out of school, or just like, doesn't take college out of it, just being young, and like you're just trying to make something of yourself in whatever capacity, and just like giving yourself the grace to just take a break when you need it. And like, you don't necessarily have to like turn off everything, but like know that like whatever it is, it's like it can wait until tomorrow, or like there are very few things that like are gonna like stop the world from turning, and more likely than not, anything that you're doing isn't gonna make a difference. Not to be like a Debbie Downer about that, because it's just like, you know at the end of the day, it's like I'm just drawing pictures, like nobody cares, like it's fun, and it's like it's cool for me, and it's like I'm glad that like people dig it, and like, I'm very fortunate, but like just recognizing that it's just like your mental health and like your well-being is ultimately going to be the best thing. And so it's like if you need to slow down and take that break to like get yourself where you need to be, because it's like if you're not showing up and being like the best for your own self, like you can't show up for anyone else. And like that's something that like I never realized until I was, with my partner, and like we because it's like I would just work myself into the ground, and it's like I just go full tilt and then burn out, and then I'm like super depressed and just like wrecked for however long. And then it's just like, all right, cool, you just like, instead of just taking like a solid break like once or twice a week, and like not working until, working a full-time job, and then working like all night, and then getting up and like grinding again, and then grinding on the weekend, and like not having fun because it's like, oh, I have to like hustle my way to the top, like that's not healthy, and it's like I spent a lot of time in that like grind mindset. And like, there's definitely, I think, like a level to that if you're trying to like build a career or a business or like whatever it is, but it's like not to that degree. It's just like, and I think as somebody with ADHD, it's just like I tend to go full tilt into like whatever it is that I get into, and it's like it's an all or nothing mentality, and it's just like I'm trying to be better about like stepping back and being like, okay, you know what, maybe we can do this at like 25%, and like, have a little bit more balance, and like but yeah, it's, try to find a balance and everything, and just like take a break, slow down and take a break. It's tough. This was like the only question I kind of like struggled with, because it's like it's hard, it's my my wife kind of got on my mom about this one day because like my mom and sister have both been diagnosed and like medicated for forever, and she was just like, "So why didn't you guys like do this for Jack like a long time ago?" And they're like, "Oh well, like as long as he was busy, he was fine." And I was just like, "Oh, sure," and I never really thought it was a thing until or realized it was a thing until recently because it's like I have a cousin who like because it's I think I'm more of like ADD versus ADHD because like I've never been like a overly like hyper just like the stereotypical like spazzy kid like bouncing off the walls and like jumping off the roof and doing crazy stuff like that was my cousin. So it was always like, oh yeah, like Caleb, he's got it, that's him, that's that's not me, no big deal, like I'm fine. um but I think the one thing that has helped me, like whether you can get a diagnosis or not, is just like really just, taking care of like your physical and like mental health as best as you can. Like I was never one to really like I was in marching band in high school, but like that was the extent of my like exercise. So it's like I'd never like worked out or like went to the gym or like did like I was never a runner or anything like that. But like one thing that I found is like if you can just set any kind of like wow just having like some kind of like routine set into your day where like you spend a little bit of time just getting some kind of exercise and just like try to eat a little bit better. It makes such a big difference. Like at one of my jobs in California, we had I was very, very lucky. We had like a state of the art gym and like free trainers and stuff like at work, and it was like it was so awesome. It's like I learned how to like exercise properly and like work out, like all of these things, like learned like proper nutrition and like here's how to have like a proper healthy balanced meal. And I was like, wow, oh my god, this is crazy. And like we did like a 90-day challenge at one point, and it's like I stopped drinking, I wasn't like smoking, don't know if I can like talk about that, but and we're just just exercising a lot, eating really clean, and like doing all of that. And it's like that was the only time in my life where I've like my mind was quiet. Like it was insane the level of clarity that I had. But at the same time, it's like, I wasn't fun to be around because, I wasn't really able to partake in anything like socially because it's just like, okay, cool. It's like I have to hit my macros today and like I can only eat out like once a week and like, and it's just like nobody wants to be around that guy. Sorry, health community. You have in order to do that, like that has to be like your lifestyle and like your friend, like your whole life has to revolve around that. And like I'm not saying that like to cure your ADHD you have to do this, and it's like because that's like one of those examples where it's just like I went from like 0 to 100 and it was just like there was no middle ground, and then I was being obsessive about that, and like that ended up causing its own other issues because it's like I was having anyway, whole other thing. But so like my thing now, the whole reason why we're talking about this is like something that I'm trying to do now that I've got my own schedule and like working in like shorter time frames. So it's like if I've got something to do, it's like if I can just work on it for like 15 to 30 minutes, and then I'll get up, maybe go to the bathroom and like stretch or like do just like some, maybe do some push-ups or maybe do some squats, or like maybe if you've got like some dumb, like just do don't make it like a whole like, oh, I have to go do this right now. But it's like if you have it like near you, just take a break, like, and just like get like the blood flowing a little bit. It kind of just like calms down, keeps your focus going. At least it helps a little bit, and it's just like I don't know.